So now we're moving on to probably the most time-consuming part about making these videos, which is, funnily enough, making the actual video. So I'm going to go open my video editing software, which is Final Cut Pro. So once I'm in Final Cut, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new library. And what a library is a sort of storage location that keeps all your files for different projects. So I'm just going to call this Happy Birthday. Okay, now what you want to do now is create a new event, and what an event is a place to store all your different clips and files. So let's say Happy Birthday is the sort of overall folder, then your event is for each sort of project. There you go. So now what we're going to do is import media. Now, when we're importing, I always want to create optimized media, this checkbox here. What that does is it converts every video file into a different format, which is a lot easier to edit with, and it's just going to make your life a lot easier. Then also, I create proxy media. This is helpful if you've not really got a very powerful computer, because you can edit with the proxy files, which is like a lot less file size and less quality, but it's going to be a lot lighter on your computer load, and it again makes your life easier for editing. So I'm going to grab every video by Command A for all and press import. This will take a while, so sit back and let everything do its thing. So that's the videos all finished importing. Now what we need to do is create a new project. Again, we're going to call it Happy Birthday. And in terms of settings, 1080p HD, 1920 by 1080 at 30 frames a second. The rendering, I just leave it as Apple ProRes 422. And stereo, and our sample rate, mine is going to be 48 kilohertz because that's what my project was, but just make sure this matches what your Logic or whatever DAW you were using is. So what I'm going to do now is go grab the audio file that we took from Logic. So go find wherever you saved that and just drag it into the timeline. Now it's really important that the first thing you drag in is that audio file from Logic. Now, similar in Logic, we can zoom in and out both vertically there and horizontally there. Now let's zoom in till we can just see the first note here. So we've got our audio in. Now the fun part, again, is getting everything synced up. So we're going to go in the same order, start from the top of the band right down to the bottom. In fact, we'll start with the Conductor, because obviously you don't need the Conductor audio, but we do need the Conductor video. So let's start with the Conductor and work our way down. So all you have to do is press and drag down. So I've got the Conductor video dragged in now. All I'm doing is looking out for the waveforms similar to Logic, and we can zoom in here, and I'm looking to match up the waveforms with the audio track, and that looks pretty close to me. Let's look at it. That looks good. So now what we need to do is press the file and go Option G on your keyboard. This creates a new compound clip, and we're going to call this Nick Conductor. So now I'm just going to do that for every single one. I'll show you it once more. Grab the soprano, zoom in, trimmer at the start, get them synced up, listen to it. Make sure it's in sync that way. Bring them back to the start, Option G, stop, enter. So I'll do that for the rest of them and come back to you. So I've just went through and synced up every single part to the audio file, making sure to drag back the start of each file to the very start of the project. So now you can see I've got all these new clips called compound clips, and you can tell they're compound clips because of this little icon here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag all my compound clips, and if you use the command key to get any that you couldn't click and drag, just use the command and click, and we should have 25 of 52 selected. What I'm going to do is I'm going to press F. What that does is favourite them, which lets me know that's the ones I want to use. It puts a big green stripe on them. And it also means if I go up to the top where it says all clips, I just press favourites, and now I'm only viewing the 25 videos that I'm going to use for my video. So there's a few different ways that we can get our videos arranged on the screen to where we want them to be. The most simple way without using any third-party plugins or effects is just rescaling each video and then moving them to where they need to be. But it does involve a lot of time and a bit of maths, so I'll show you that way first. So the first step in doing it manually is to get a grid to overlay your videos to. So let's go ahead and open PowerPoint. This is going to allow us to make a simple table just so we can figure out where things need to be. So just delete whatever's there, go to the Design tab and make sure that the slide size is widescreen, because that's the same format as our Final Cut Pro editing software. So we're going to go to Insert, we're going to get a table. Now we know we've got 25 videos. If we want them to be evenly spaced, I know I'll need a 5x5 grid. So let's go get 5x5. Press OK. Now what you want to do is drag these to the very corner of the screen. Go to your table design, and if you just click this one here, it's just going to give us the black outlines. And I also find that you don't really need the outside border, so I'm going to press outside border, then OK to that. So now we've just got the lines in between. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go up to File, Export. We're going to export this as a PNG image and make sure it is 1920 by 1080 pixels, which is again the same HD format as Final Cut Pro. So I'm just going to save this to where it needs to be saved. So I've made a new folder called Grids, and I'm just going to call this 5x5. So now you can close PowerPoint. You don't need to save it because we won't need that again. We've now got our picture. Let's go back to Final Cut Pro and let's press Import Media. So I've navigated to where that image is. Let's just press 5x5. We don't need to create any proxy or optimized media because it's a picture. It doesn't matter if you've got them pressed because it's not going to do it anyway. Let's import. And again, I'm just going to press F on this to make it a favourite. So when I'm viewing my favourites, that's involved. So let's go ahead and drag it on top. And drag it the full width. I'm going to say, let's put the conductor in the centre. So we'll start with the conductor. So it's helpful that I've got all these as compound clips because I know they're in sync as soon as I put them there. So if I play this, it's in sync already. So now what we need to do is pretty simple for the first one, is we just need to scale it. The way to do it is if you think of 100% as the full size, which it is here in this inspector window, if you go to scale, 100%, you want it to be 5 times smaller. So you're going to do 100 divided by 5, 20. And straight away that fits perfectly in there because it's centred. So that's the easiest one. The rest of them do involve maths. Now, of course, you could just do this. You could just grab one of them, drag it to the start. We know it's already in sync. You could scale it to 20%. And then what you can do is if you press this little button here, then press transform, you can freehand drag it and it'll snap. It'll snap to the centre line there. So you don't have to worry about it not being centred. You could just drag it manually into the squares like that. But if you want to get it extra precise, there is specific numbers you can use to calculate where it needs to go so there's no gaps. So before you scale anything down, we've just dragged that in. Let's change the anchor point. Now, right now the anchor point is right in the middle, 0 pixels, 0 pixels. So it's right in the middle of this. I want to make the anchor point the bottom left. And the way I do that is, again, maths. So we take the actual width of the image, which is 1920 pixels, and I'm going to divide that by 2. That's 960. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create x is going to be minus 960. So now you can see it's moved 960 pixels that way. And if we go the height of the image, which is 1080 pixels, divide that by 2 to get 540, we're going to do the anchor point as minus 540. So now you can see right in the middle of the screen is the very left-hand bottom edge of that. That means whatever numbers I type in the position here is going to be the coordinates of this point. So now you go for the big picture. So we're going to go 20% for the scale. And again, width of the whole image is 1920. Half of that, again, is 960. So let's go the x and type in minus 960. And that takes us right to the left-hand side. And again, minus 540, which is 1080 divided by 2. So there you go, that's perfectly locked in there. It does take a bit of time and a bit of maths per one, but eventually you'll build up the image and you'll have no gaps between them, which is nice. So if I grab the next one, let's say Solar Cornet, drag it on top, make sure it's at the very start. Before we scale it, do the magic numbers of minus 960, minus 540. And it's important you do this before you scale it, because after you scale it, those numbers will change. So 20% scale. So again, we want to be in the same y-axis, which is up and down. We're going to be in the same y-axis as the soprano player. So let's do minus 540. But we're going to have a slightly different x-axis, which is left to right. So the way we figure out the y-axis in this case is we take the whole width of the image, again, it's 1920. We're going to divide it by 5 this time, and that's going to give us the distance between each clip. So it's 384. So what we need to do is we need to take half of the whole width of the image, which again is 960, and we want to take away, this time, we want to take away 384. That's going to get a number of 576. So on the x-axis, we're going to type in minus 576. And there you go, perfectly lined up. So you've got to go through every single one. You've got to add the magic numbers of 960 for your x-axis, 540 for your y-axis. Then you've got to scale them, and then you've got to figure out the coordinates where they need to go. Or if you're feeling lazy, just drag them to where they need to go, and you're going to get a few gaps. So as you can imagine, it's quite a time-consuming process. That would take quite a while to get through them. Now, I've kind of developed a faster way to do it now, and I've created templates for me to work with. Now, you have to have a different piece of software to make the templates, so I'm going to make a few of them free for you to download, and there'll be a link in the description of this video where you can download them. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to navigate to where my templates are stored, which is here. In my time making all these videos, I've created all these layouts, so there's 64 videos, there's 64 with a big one in the middle, there's 30 videos, there's 30 even videos. You get the gist of things. I've got a lot of different layouts. So, luckily enough, I've got one already for 25 videos, which is right there. So I'm just going to drag that down into the timeline. So we can get rid of the stuff we've done beforehand. So I'm just going to delete everything here. Remember, if you delete it here, it's not going away, it's just getting deleted from your timeline. So now also we don't need the PowerPoint grid because I've already got a predetermined grid. So, most important thing is this file, this 25 videos file, needs to start at the exact same time as the audio file, otherwise nothing's going to sync up. So let's go back to our media, which is this one here. And I'm going to unfavorite this by pressing U. Now the way this works is it's called a generator, and what a generator is a predetermined layout for anything in Final Cut that you can edit without having to do everything all over again. So I've already set out my lines. I can create the width of the lines if I want really fat lines, which I'm not going to have. I usually have them about 6 or 7. So you can change the colour as well. Let's just go simple, choose a nice black. So all you can see now is video 1, video 2, video 3, video 4, video 5, and it is literally as simple as clicking this little drop arrow here, then going and selecting the clip you want. Then all you have to do is press apply clip. Now it's really important when you're selecting the source clip for each drop zone that you press the very, very start of these little windows here. You could also have it in this mode. If you press this button, you could have it in that sort of mode, but I much prefer being able to see people's faces and what instrument they play. So let's grab the second B flat bass and make sure you're clicking right at the left hand side, and it will snap to it. When you hover your mouse over it, it'll snap to the start. Just press it, then press apply clip. Then it is literally super simple. All you have to do is choose the one you want, apply clip. Click it, video 4, choose your video, click it, apply clip. So I'm just going to quickly whiz through that and I'll be back to you in a second. Now it is up to you the way you want to arrange your video. I usually do it as close as possible to actually looking at a band in an audience. It's impossible to have it perfect, but if you get them in the relative position to where you panned them in your audio workstation, then it's going to look and sound better. Another nice trick is if you've got a big massive project with say like 50 or 60 musicians in it, you can just search. So let's say I want the solo horn, type in solo horn, and it's the first one there. And this is also why one of the most important things about this sort of project is organising your files beforehand. If these weren't organised like they are all named and stuff before I imported them to Final Cut, this would just be horrible. So that's me just getting to the very last one now, which is the solo trombone. So now that I've got all my files in place, I know they all start at the start of the project, I know this generator file starts at the project, and I know this audio file starts at the start of the project. So in theory, it's just going to all play through. I won't have to do any more syncing up. Another thing to point out that is this generator file doesn't have any audio, so you're not going to hear any of the audio from the videos, which is good. You just want to hear the audio from the audio file that we bounced from Logic. Now, if you've done it the way I showed you before, you're definitely going to want to mute all the videos. Another thing to point out here is, remember when we transcoded our media at the start? If I were to play this now, it's on optimized or original video footage, which is going to be quite processor intensive on my computer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Proxy, and it's going to switch over all the files into less quality. It's not very noticeable right now, but it is when you export it. Big difference. Now it should just play nice and smoothly, and you've just got to make sure that when you're editing, stay in Proxy if you need to, and when you export, switch back to optimized and original. There you go. So all in sync, ready to export. What I would probably do is I'm gonna click this file, this generator file, and I'm gonna do Option G like we did before. I'm gonna create a compound clip, and I'll just name it Happy Birthday Clip. Now what this allows us to do is put some nice effects on it. So let's go to Transitions and drag in a cross dissolve, and it's the first one that comes up. This is going to fade it in at the start for us, and it'll also do a fade out at the end. There you go. And also, if we wanted to go into our effects panel, which is this button here next to the transitions, let's say we wanted to put a sort of black and white. I'm not going to in this case, but all you need to do is drag it in, and you're in black and white. It is that simple. So I'm just going to get rid of that black and white by pressing Command Z for undo. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go up to our view again, switch back to optimized media, so it's the highest quality possible. Now I'm going to go up and I'm going to create a master file, and this is how you export. So for uploading to YouTube or sending off to SCBF or anything, I would always recommend encoding in H.264. It kind of gives you the best quality for little space as possible. You can see that's only 60 megabytes, 58, but nearly 60 megabytes. If I was to encode it in the usual format that I'm editing in, which is Apple ProRes, that's a lot bigger than that, 400 megabytes. And by the time you do a 5-minute long piece, that could be 4 or 5 gigabytes. So let's stick with this format, video and audio, H.264 and 1920 by 1080. Let's go next. Let's save it as happy birthday. So I've just named my file, I'm going to press save, and now you can actually go work on other projects. This is amazing in Final Cut that you can just let it do it in the background. If you go up to this little wheel here, you can view what's going on. So right now it's sharing. It's only a 20-second clip, shouldn't take too long, depending on how powerful your computer is. If you've got a long project, this could probably take a few hours. But if you've got a relatively fast computer, it'll be probably an hour at the most for quite a long video. So a nice pop-up window comes, it says share successful. If you press show, it'll take you to where the file is, and let's watch it for the first time in full screen. So that shows you the simplest of methods to make a virtual band performance. Obviously, if you've got a longer project, it's going to take longer and you might want to do different layouts. All you have to do for different layouts is, let's do a little example here, let's get rid of these crossfades, is we've just done our first layout, let's grab another layout, or you could do it manually. Let's grab something simple, 3 videos. Make sure you drag it right back to the start, because if it's not at the start, everything's going to be out of sync, because the videos that you place in these drop zones start wherever this clip starts. So let's change our colour to black, and let's choose 3 random videos to put in. There you go, and just like that, I've created a new layout. I'm going to go Option G, and I'm going to call it Happy Birthday Clip 1. Let's scroll back to where it snaps to the end of the first one, and if you press Command B, which is blade, it's going to cut straight through it, and you've got to make sure you've made a compound clip, because if you don't do that, it's going to change the start point. Then let's get rid of what's underneath. So now they should just play straight into each other. There you go. Now let's say you wanted to go back to the other one. All you have to do is Command B again, get rid of what you don't need. Let's drag out the first one from underneath. Then let's Command B it, blade again, on either side of this clip 1. Delete that. So all you have to do now is grab some cross dissolves if you want, or any other transition, and watch it play. So as you can imagine, you can be really inventive. You can have different layouts fading into each other. You could even put in some crazy built-in, let's try the combo spinner, see how that looks. It's obviously going to be a bit laggy because it's trying to process all these videos at once, but that's where Proxy Media again comes in handy. So hopefully that's given you a nice overview of how you can create a virtual band performance for yourself. It is quite time consuming, as I've said, and it does involve getting to know your software, but once you know it and you get into the flow of things, it's really simple and fun, and you can get really creative with it. So thanks for watching and good luck.